Hiya, I'm Paige Toon and I'm the author of The Minute I Saw You. I'm here with my dog Tessa, my little puppy, and I'm here to answer some questions. Okay, so the first question is, what compelled you to write The Minute I Saw You? I had two ideas, basically, which ended up being the story for The Minute I Saw You. The first one on its own wasn't enough to make me think I've got to write that book. It was the second one that really sort of compelled me to want to write it. The first one was prompted by a friend of mine who'd gone to an optician and found that she was kind of quite attracted to the optician and got the giggles. And I thought, what a strange job to be working in when you have to get so up close and personal, staring into a stranger's eyes. I thought that'd be a really fun way to start a novel. And then I sort of had this other idea about, that same person coming back in, maybe a couple of weeks later and being a completely different sort of person. And I know that when you're really upset, sometimes, you can't look at people in the eye. So I had to sort of think about why my character, Sonny, couldn't look Hannah, the optician, in the eye. And he was very upset about something. The second idea is actually to do with Hannah's backstory. And I had that idea when I flew to Australia last Easter, and I'd watched a film on the plane, and there was a small sort of reference to basically it was to a baby. And I thought to myself, so 25 years later, what would that character be doing? How would they cope with the situation that they were put in? It's very unusual. And when I came up with that idea at 3:00 in the morning when I was jet lagged, and suddenly, that thought popped into my head, what would have happened to that character in 27 years' time? I just thought, I have to write this book. And the two ideas came together, and thus you have The Minute I Saw You. Okay, so the next question is, and now I have to start looking at my computer because I can't remember the questions I've been sent. What surprised you about this book? Right, I think the thing that surprised me most about this book was just how light and dark it is, like the bridge between those two things. I've always written, sort of light love stories, but they've always had shades of darkness in them. They're not sort of all light and fluffy. The case of this, it was much darker than I've ever written before, but also I think lighter. It really, the sort of sexy, fun banter between Hannah and Sonny it was just so much fun to write. But then to sort of get to the depths of their problems, and basically neither of them can have long-term relationships. So that's a sort of issue that they're both faced with. But where a fling would have been really easy to sort of get things off their chest, so to speak, Sonny has decided to make changes. He's gone into therapy, and he's basically started by committing to a vow of abstinence, so he won't have sex. Hannah, on the other hand, would have much preferred to just go down that route, forget about him afterwards. But because he's made this decision to try and sort of get to the bottom of why he can't have long-term relationships, it effectively, over the course of the summer, forces her to sort of face her demons too. So, and those demons are quite dark, for both of them. So I think that's what surprised me the most. Next question. What do you hate about writing, and how do you overcome this? I think probably the only thing I hate about writing is to do with the research. If I haven't visited a place, then it just takes me so long to research what that place is like. So I can really, really get to the bottom of, what it would be like for my characters to go there and sort of live there. So I always try to visit the places that I'm writing about. And the other thing is, it's again to do with research. It's if one of my characters does something that I have no interest in whatsoever, like for example, Phoebe from the one we fell in love with, she climbs mountains, and I couldn't think of anything worse, but I had to really understand rock climbing in order to be able to get inside her head. So I find that a bit of a struggle because you have to do all of that research, but it does stop you from writing. I find it very hard to, even though I barely mentioned any of Phoebe's technical know-how in the one we fell in love with, I had to understand it in order to understand her. So yeah, it's research really. That's the only thing, is to really get inside the heads of your characters. Right, next one is, do your reading habits change when you're writing a book? And if so, how? Do you read books in the same genre you're writing? Do you read something completely different? Do you read less? Right, well, I never used to read at all. When I first got my book deal, I was like, the thought of reading was terrifying, because I thought I'd read somebody else's book and would think this is so much better than anything I could ever write, and it would just paralyze me. So I stopped reading for a while, and then I had my son, my baby boy, and I the first book that basically got me back into reading was Twilight. So it was still a love story, but it was a different genre. It was sort of like a vampire, basically, fantasy sort of side. I'm going to put her down on my lap so she can just chill. She's very tired now. So yeah, I started reading a different genre, but it, like I say, still a love story, and I've loved that genre ever since. I love having a better reason to keep your heroine and hero apart than just, well, they've got a girlfriend or something like that. It could be because, well, he's a vampire, or he fights demons, for a living, and that sort of thing. So that, I find that really, really fun genre. But now it doesn't bother me. Now I can read anything, because I still compare myself, and I'll still think, oh, I'm nowhere near as good a writer as that person. But I guess I kind of also have faith that if I'm enjoying the writing process myself, then, so far it's proven correct that my readers will enjoy the books that I'm writing. And I loved writing The Minute I Saw You, so I think that's pretty, hopefully a good sign. And I just find now that reading inspires me, whereas before it used to, I'd feel threatened by it. Now I'll think, oh, that author's found a really beautiful way of saying that, and I need to do better. So yeah, I don't not read anymore. My next question. I'm going to pop her down because she's whining a little bit. You say bye. Say bye to everybody. See you in a little bit. Right. And you pop. Okay. My next question is, what's the strangest thing you've ever done to research a book? Okay. I haven't done that many strange things. I've done unusual things. Like, I guess the strangest thing was for If You Could Go Anywhere. I went to Norway to research it, and there was a base jumping element of the story, which again was something that I never in a million years would have ever done, and I still haven't. But I had to sort of ask to go and watch some base jumpers come down from a mountain, and that meant going and ask if I could just get on this boat and zoom down the fjord to this place where the base jumpers came down, and leaving my family back on the beach, my husband with the kids, and just I found that was strange, to be on a boat by myself, just sort of waiting for these, adrenaline junkies to jump down from a mountain. But it was really cool. Like, it definitely helped me to write that part of the story, being able to do that and see that for myself. Because from the perspective of my character, she doesn't base jump, but she sees someone who does. So that was kind of strange. And I think the other thing was, the one that sort of stands out for me is just going to the top of a mountain, even though I didn't climb it. In the one we fell in love with, one of my characters, Phoebe, she's a rock climber. I've already mentioned her. And she goes to the top of a mountain, and she basically stays up overnight. They have like an apartment at the top of this mountain called the Aiguille du Midi, which is near Chamonix in France. And it's got a view of Mont Blanc, and she works on the cable car. And so she has to go up and stay overnight in this apartment. And so I went to the top of the Aiguille du Midi, and I was so, I felt paralyzed by fear. It was really, we were just so high up, and, I was sort of looking down over this bridge, and even though it cost so much money to go up there, I just couldn't wait to get back down again. I felt like I was sort of standing at the edge of, everything. And I think what was really weird about that is that 2 years later, after I'd written the book, I went back to the same place again. And this time, because I had Phoebe's character in my head, it wasn't anywhere near as scary. It was so strange. I guess I actually do keep a little piece of my characters inside me after I've written their story. I sort of feel they feel so real to me, and I sort of felt like I had a little bit of Phoebe's bravery afterwards, and it didn't scare me the second time. It was really odd. Right. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self? Okay, this is advice that my dad actually did give to me when I was, I think, about 17. He said 5 years from now, you'll look back and understand why this happened. And at the time, I was really struggling with my A-levels, and just, really couldn't concentrate. I've since discovered that I can't even write in the summer. I sort of find that a really difficult time. I find my brain's just so foggy, and partly to do with hay fever and to do with the medication I was taking, I found it really, really hard to concentrate. But yeah, so 5 years from now, you look back and understand why this happened. And I didn't. I I messed up my A-levels, but if I hadn't messed up my A-levels, I wouldn't have gone to a different university. I wouldn't have had a year out. I wouldn't have, taken that year to go back to Australia. And, during that year, I met Ayrton Senna, for example, at the Formula One Grand Prix in Adelaide. And, I think meeting him and having a little bit of a crush on him, and then when he died, being quite shaken by that, that was part of the inspiration for Chasing Daisy. And I think just being torn between Australia and England, that was the inspiration for Lucy in the Sky. And yeah, the biggest thing to come out of all of it is if I hadn't gone to a different university, I never would have met my husband, and my two children wouldn't exist. So I definitely think you can find positives in a negative, if you just give it a little bit of time. If you could spend a day with any one of your characters, which would it be and why? And I would say any of the men, but I can't do that because I'm married, and also they're very, very happy with the characters that I've created for them. So I can't say any of the men. So I think if I was going to choose a girl, it would be Bridget from The Last Piece of My Heart, because she's just, for me, she's my most fun female character. I loved being inside her head. I wrote about her. She was a friend character in The Longest Holiday. She wasn't meant to be like a particularly big character in that, but she ended up as the writing went on. Sorry, the dogs went crazy now. Come here, you monkey. What's wrong? Okay, so the character that I would spend a day with, if I could choose a character, it would be Bridget from The Last Piece of My Heart, because she's just the most fun. She appeared in 3 different books. The first was The Longest Holiday, and she was just a friend, but she ended up being so much bigger than a friend that, that I initially thought for her. And then I wanted to include her in the next book after that, which was 13 Weddings. And I had so many readers write to me after both those books saying, we want Bridget to get her own story. And I thought, well, I'll write her a short story, which I did. And that ended up being the prologue for The Last Piece of My Heart. And so she's just a character that I've kind of come back to time and time again. I think she would be really, really fun to spend a day with. So I'll say Bridget, or any of the men, as I've already said. What's a book you wish you had written? I posted about this just recently because I absolutely loved it. Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuistion. And I just thought it was so clever and just so witty and really sexy and just a fantastic love story. It had me laughing out loud on so many different occasions. And the concept was just amazing. It's about what would happen if America's first son, who, he's the son of the first female president of America, falls in love with a prince of England. So there's this, Prince Henry, and it's kind of like a alternate universe. And it's these 2 guys who, first of all, absolutely hate each other and eventually sort of become friends and then fall in love. And I just thought it was very, very clever. I definitely would have liked to have, come up with that idea myself and written it. Right, next question is, you travelled the world with your dad, and what was your favourite place to visit? Yes, I did travel a lot. My dad used to be a racing driver, so I grew up between Australia, America and England, but we didn't travel that much to loads of different countries. He raced in Japan, so we would go to Japan, and I definitely really vividly remember some of the, sort of cultural aspects of going to Japan, like the sort of paper screens in bedrooms and the bamboo floors, and taking your shoes off and putting on these wooden kind of clogs, as you go into restaurants, and, sitting down on the ground, with like footwells that sort of been, carved out of the ground. And yeah, I found that was just really, really interesting. Like, I'd love to go back there. And also just parts of America, feels so vivid to me. We traveled around a little bit. Like, I remember the mountains and the desert and the cacti and, petrified forests and things like that. That feels really, really vivid. So yeah, I'd say that. Okay, my last question is, what do you hope readers take away from The Minute I Saw You? And this is I just really hope you enjoy it. And I really hope this is a story that stays with you for a long time. Like, it definitely will stay with me. I think Hannah and Sunny really are, could be my favourite ever characters that I've written. They both go through so much, and I really, really felt for them. But I found them so much fun too. They're really like the flirty banter and the chemistry that sizzles between them. And, afterwards, I still think about them now, and every time I get, one of my copies of my books through, I tend to read it again. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. I haven't had the paperback yet, but when I do, that'll be one of the first things I do, just sort of read it through from start to finish again. And And I kind of hope that readers feel like doing that too. I hope you get to the last page and, want to go back and start again, just to experience all those emotions again. So I think that's it. I think I have answered all the questions I meant to. Thank you very much for listening. And Tessa's going to say bye now, aren't you? And then we can go find out what she's been barking at. So yeah, lots of love, and really hope you enjoy The Minute I Saw You. Bye.